Here we are, bottom of the Smash Mountain. I would like to thank all my Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/bsmpod for continuing to support me in what I'm doing. Big shout outs to my senior producers. We got Ventus Official and my parents, mom and dad. Love y'all. Thank you for the support. This evening, we have NathanSandwich here to talk us through all the turbulence of TOing in 2023 for Melee and Smash in general, to give credit to the Ultimate people not really being thrown any bones whatsoever either. Not even having Steve, who apparently is broken beyond all use and has to be banned indefinitely / forever. Not going to get patched there. We just basically have to wait for Ultimate Deluxe or ultimate. Ooh, ultimate. We'll call it ultimate squared in the community. I really hope that they do that. They won't, but I just want to hope for it. Anyway, we got Nathan here, and we're also talking about Genesis 9. We were both there. You did a lot more than I did. I was big time chilling for the most part. Had some brackets, and I think just more or less trying to survive, and I wasn't even working that much beyond Friday. I did 8 hours of volunteer work on Friday, but then Saturday and Sunday I was trying to, like I said, trying to chill, and you were nonstop the entire weekend. So Nathan, thank you so much for joining me yet again on BSM Pod.
Yeah, no worries as always. I mean, I always enjoy being on here. We finally got to meet each other for the first time at Genesis. We finally, after years of, I think this is the 4th time I've been on. I can't recall. I've been on a few times.
Yes, so you have.
It was neat, to finally meet you for the first time, and then, just great job volunteering Genesis 9 as always. Volunteers are always much appreciated, and just the times are interesting to say the least. Definitely not the best of places, but I think this is a time to really look at a lot of reflection and to see what we can do going forward as a community, because I don't think it's as doom and gloom as people make it out to be.
Did you see the commentators curse with Blur and Tafa?
I did not watch the whole thing yet, but you can give me the rundown. I haven't been able to get the whole rundown yet.
I give a lot of credit to Blur for sort of reining himself in, which is something that I perceive that he doesn't always do. But what I'm getting at is that Blur said, this hurts in a lot of ways, but I can't pretend that this is going to be the end of Melee, because I've been in this community far too long to know that that is absolutely not true. We are going to continue to find ways to do this, but things are going to have to change. One of my favorite things that Blur said specifically that felt meaningful to me was tournament locations. Maybe it's not always a good idea to do such a big city, such as, New York City or nearby New York City for one, or what about Orlando, or what about even somewhere like Philly? Not that as if there has been a major there, but maybe it's not Detroit either. And he already pointed out that Shine technically not in Boston anymore, in Worcester nearby. So maybe you do a smaller city or a town suburb area outside of a city. It makes it harder for everybody to get there. But if the cost of the venue is lower, and if everything across the board, food, hotels, everything is more manageable, then there's your compromise. And in particular, it's the venue, because the venue represents such a big portion of what you're just laying down money on and going, I hope I make all this back, because otherwise I'm down 200 grand or more, and I'm just a human being with an LLC, I guess, but really it's just me. So that's the big scary part in doing all of this. And I give a lot of credit to BTS for helping out with that Papa John's deal, kind of helping everybody go, all right, we're going to make this work one way or the other. Now I have a little bit more confidence to go in on the venue that we need to get. If it's Juggle Guy with Big House in Detroit at the convention center there, or the convention center in San Jose for Genesis 9, whatever it would be, although Papa John's was not a sponsor of Genesis 9, so it was probably just Genesis 8. You get it. My point is, it is a significant loss, but there are steps forward in the right direction. And also pointing out, this is another big idea, all the tournaments didn't disappear overnight. We still have Battle BC5. This upcoming weekend is Collision. We have Major Upset. We have Gommel, which is going splendidly in terms of registration numbers. SmashCon just got announced. Oh, and Full Bloom for 2024. It's a long ways away, but that's been announced, and that's great because Full Bloom was sort of one of the Mickey Mouse majors, if you will, one that you would see Zane and maybe a Mango or a Leffen appear at. So that's a big enough event for me. That gets me super excited. So it is not all darkness, and Blur wanted to definitely lean into the darkness bit, but he said, it's actually not all bad news, but it is definitely a sucky situation because it handicaps us in a lot of different ways.
Agreed. And I mean, I actually took some notes before the pod, actually, and I actually want to read some of them out. So, like, basically, my rundown on the BTS going down is that I think it is unfortunate and it sucks for everyone that's involved or affected by the loss. I would say specifically Mikey, Zayn, Rachel, um, people that were formerly there, like Hotbid, Aiden, it sucks for all of them because a lot of them really came to their own while there. Um, you know, Summit as a whole, I mean, you would say next to probably Genesis or Big House, you'd say that was the event that everybody watched. So in terms on the majors perspective, I think it is a big loss. I don't think that's anyone would question that. It's a big loss. But what Blur said about doing stuff in the suburbs, I actually wholeheartedly agree, and this is coming from someone who has grown up in a suburb their entire life, is that most of the general heart of the Melee community, like Genesis, was actually founded in a suburb. It was founded in Antioch in 2009 by Bobak. I believe Sheridan as well was involved at that time, but that was founded in 2009 in Antioch, and that was a suburb. Then they did Genesis 2. And eventually they went to the big city known as Genesis, with Genesis 3 at San
Yep.
Jose. But the fact that like this community originated in the suburbs. There's no way around it. I mean, stuff like "Don't Go Down There, Jeff," "Good Shit Herman," um, the Scorpidorp days. Like a good chunk of those were founded in areas you wouldn't expect, and I feel like that should be highlighted more than anything. So what Blurt is saying is 1,000% correct. Is that you can't it would be a disservice to the local community to not try to accommodate those areas in some capacity. And I think it's important to realize that I think the community in some ways is at a crossroads when it comes to this, because you have the very big esportsy side, which that bubble has just burst, but you have a general chunk of the people there that have primarily only worked on the esports side, but then you have people that have worked mostly on this grassroots area, like the suburbs or your local scenes. And I think we're in a state of transition right now where I think some tough decisions are going to be made. I don't think we're dying anytime soon. I feel like that is a crazy thought. Maybe there's right to worry. I can understand that. Maybe some people's job and livelihoods. I think that is very understandable and justified. But in terms of Melee as a whole, I don't think we're going anywhere. I think the more important thing to go on is you should look at what was right and what went well with BTS. You could say production quality went well. You could say couch style commentary concept went well. The skits went well. You have to look at all of those things. You have to look and say, okay, what was good? But then what was bad? People gave a lot of shit for the voting system. That's one thing we can maybe, if we try to do something like a summit style, we go and try to address that. But and then what else? Like, maybe it was stagnant on the staff side. Maybe we didn't have enough staff, or maybe it was generally the same people the whole time. Then maybe we can try to find a way to cycle more people in. I think you should look at many other things than just it's going down and look back great memories. You have to eventually push forward at the end of the day, because let's face it, I think this is the biggest loss that Smash has had since maybe the MLG days. You have to really think about it in the big picture. But you know what the community did? They stuck with it. They went through a dark age and they pushed forward. And you look at the resources we have now. We have online. We still have locals even now. I think that's something we forget. You have thriving local scenes. NorCal had 34 locals in the past month in February alone. I think we're doing damn fine. I think what should happen is that you should give a little bit more attention to the local scenes, because that's where the backbone of the community is right now. And you should try building within, because that's how you build people up. That's how most of the people have earned their stripes in the scene, and it would be a disservice to neglect that aspect of the community.
Okay, so we also forgot to say that Wave Dash 2023 just got announced as well, and that's in Los Angeles. And well, you get it. It's a big circle, a big SoCal event. You get it. Also, it's in the same parking lot as an In-N-Out Burger, which I would really love to go to, just specifically to have an In-N-Out Burger. It's one of the things I forgot to do while in San Jose. I was too busy using my Chipotle gift card to stretch that out for basically the entire weekend. My bad. Sorry, In-N-Out. Don't worry, I'll get to y'all. I'm not going to Wave Dash 2023, but I know a lot of people will, because one of the things that they had in their super snappy, well-edited video was, we have air conditioning. I don't know if you remember hearing anything about Wave Dash 2022 other than that crazy Game 10 Grand Finals between Hungrybox and JMook. It was also the severe lack of air conditioning. It was so bad they just let the doors open into the venue, just like, hopefully we need some form of air to come in here. The other thing that Blur said, and I think this is worth talking about as well, this idea. Hold on, I lost it a little bit here. Let me just reel this back so that I'm getting the right train of thought and not pulling the wrong train of thought. Hold on, let me think about this, because I had this locked and loaded, but then I saw Wave Dash 2023 and I want to make sure that I mentioned it. Okay, yes, sharing the floor. That was the other idea. Blur says we need to share the floor with other people. Evo secretly has done so well, and everybody wants to be there because, more or less, you're actually encouraging everyone to fight for the spotlight there. So it's not just Bandai, and it's not just the people who make Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or whatever. It's a bunch of different people saying, hey, we want to be center stage. We want to be up on that stage. There were so many developers that made little videos during that Evo announcement, by the way, a couple weeks ago. And I thought Nintendo would never do something like that. They're not even letting Smash be at Evo, much less make a video to say, wow, we're really happy to be here. No shot, dude. So what I'm getting at is, and what Blur was saying, if you have multiple genres of things, you could have Magic Card Tournament and a Smash tournament at the same time. Or you could have Street Fighter 6, Rivals of Ether 2, and Smash Ultimate, Smash Melee. In other words, you have to sacrifice the setups, the floor space. You have to even sacrifice the spotlight for the streams. But that means that you are depending on other different people and bringing in other communities, and you're making the event harder to shut down, and you're making it so that if one thing kind of sinks because of whatever reason, and Smash is probably the most vulnerable of those other communities, that would be something that would help. But I say all that without having done the research of, well, how easy is it to get a streaming license for these other big events? It might not be as easy as, well, Blur makes it out to be. But that was the last point that I thought was interesting, was maybe we just have other communities in here besides Smash communities. Maybe the Smash only tournament style is no longer the move.
I mean, I think it's a good question. I mean, we'll see. I think it's something where, again, it's only time will tell. I think it's a good thought to keep in mind, and we have, in some capacity, already done that. I mean, you look at Genesis. I mean, Genesis had Strive. We've had Rivals. I believe we had Street Fighter at one point. We've had Rushdown Revolt. We had what was it? We had Nick All Stars at Genesis 8. So, like, it's been done. And I think that's, like, the big thing of also the longevity of Genesis, is that it has shared the floor before. So, like, the big ones, the big ones, they've already sort of done that. so like it's already been done, and I think what Laura is saying is really good for the very big ones, like your Genesis or a big house, and maybe some smaller-ish or like smaller-ish majors could go that route. It really depends on their budget at the end of the day, and then also their floor space, because that's the thing. Like floor planning is everything when it comes to like properly making sure an event can properly operate, but also making sure that if you were to give this other game the slice of the pie, you have to make sure that they are treated well as well, because otherwise it's going to be a negative experience and it's going to have bad PR, because you're going to be like, oh, you know, this is just a hypothetical thing. It's like, I don't know, Street Fighter at Genesis was shit because they didn't have enough steps, just hypothetically speaking, because that negative experience means I probably shouldn't go to this because they didn't treat this X event, this X side event well. You have to make sure that if you're going to add them, you do them good justice. Otherwise, it's otherwise it's a bad investment. You have to make sure that you invest in the time to do it.
It is really important that everybody's actually treated well and fairly, and that's what's so challenging about running multi-genre or multi-community event, is making sure that everybody comes back to you afterwards and says that was really well done, because it's there's so much easier to mess up an event like that than get it right. It is so hard to get a big event right. Talk to me about, and we can talk more about how to get past this period of time that we're entering into, which is less big, super big tournaments. They may not be as successful. 2024 might be where we see the full effects of this. We don't know yet. We can get back to the thread, but I want to talk to you about Genesis 9, because you TO'd Genesis 9 in some capacity. You were helping out. You were on staff. So talk to me about it.
So I was technically the PA, personal assistant at Genesis 9. So I had a different role, and it was kind of a multi-dimensional role. I basically got to do a bit of everything. I made lots of food runs for the staff. I also would accommodate, like, maybe if Bobek had like certain things that he couldn't handle right away, I would be kind of like his right-hand man in a lot of ways to get stuff done. Like maybe like commentary stuff, like the couch commentary that we did. I helped out with Zane on that. So like, some of the people that walked on to the mic, they usually would go through me or Zane to get on. I even subbed in for a block because he was busy, actually. So I did technically commentate Genesis 9, just totally impromptu. But it was technically part of my PA duty because no one was, Zoo was busy at the time, and it was with Blarg, which is someone that I've done commentary with numerous times. But it was neat to see how that played out. There was an aspect to me that missed the TOing side. I definitely to describe my experience at Genesis 9, it was a true neutral. There was definitely some things I enjoyed and definitely some things I didn't enjoy. But I would say the one positive I really took out of it is that it was a point where I got to be myself around people at a major again, because post-COVID and everything like that, and also just like just be around the community again, because it was the first time I had been around the community in about 5 months. So like it was a big deal for me, and it was nice to be back and to see like just what's changed, and then also just meet new people along the way. Like I really got to do a lot of cool stuff on the media side, like interview Jmook, I interviewed TK Breezy, interviewed Sunsei, who else? I interviewed Amsa.
There you go.
So many different people. It was really cool, but it was nice to be back.
It's nice that I got to meet you there and for the first time as well. I was so surprised that you went in for the hug. I was not expecting this, but I was not going to be so surprised that I didn't know what to do, because I'd already been caught off guard at my first major ever, which was Pound 2022 last year. Wheat went in for the hug. I was so not expecting this. I picture Wheat as a very stoic, and he is actually a very stoic person in my mind. He likes the dry humor stuff. He likes looking at you and saying something while something else is happening at the same time, and saying it at a time where maybe it's not best to talk about it because it's happening right here in the moment. But that's the kind of humor that I really appreciate, actually. But I was just not ready for a hug, so that caught me off guard. However, when you went in for the hug, I was like, oh, this warms my heart. And getting to talk to you right there in the moment, you actually seemed more relaxed than I expected you to be. And I'll also give shout outs to Jade and Contra as well. I seen them in action at Big House 10, and I swear it's like they have this carefree attitude. I do not understand, because I know how stressful it's been because I read the tweets, and yet when I see them on the floor, they're very polite, they are very to the point, but they almost seem relaxed, which is crazy to me. It's like kind of being the eye of the storm almost, where Jade and Contra go. They're just kind of like, yeah, this is what it is. Like, I was running pools on Friday at G9, at Genesis 9, and I go, I am missing somebody at the moment. And Jay's like, no worries. We'll just wait a few more minutes, and just walks away. And I go, okay, well, now I feel better. Wait, hold on. I should be trying to help Jade feel better about how the day is going. They shouldn't be forced to be in that position where, like, I'm the one who's supposed to be comforted as the pool captain. So big shout outs to, I'd say everyone on staff looked fairly relaxed where I saw them. I guess I would peek over and there would be an intense conversation happening sparingly, but I would say overall it felt like a lot of the work that had went into the event kind of allowed everyone to ride through and not be openly stressing out and looking like they're falling apart.
Say it's part two, just us having a lot of experience. This entire team was generally the same team that was last year's team, is just in a couple different positions. And I can say just from behind the scenes, it's not our first rodeo, and that was the big thing about this Genesis. I mean, this one was a grind. I would say, like, they're two different experiences entirely. Genesis 8 was more stressful in the sense of, at least for me, it was my first really big opportunity. It was just, everything was pretty much new in a sense. Whereas this time, I knew what to expect. I know the cycle of how it works. Like, once you've done it once, I would say the first one's the hardest. But once you've done it once, I wouldn't say it's easier, but you kind of know what to expect. You also know that you have to roll with the punches sometimes if shit doesn't go as planned. We've had like a ton of ideas that we wanted to do to Genesis 9, but we'll shove it along to the next Genesis. So I mean, like, generally, like, I wouldn't say, like, this event, like, it had its road bumps. Star GG going down was that was definitely the I would say the most stressful part of the event. But overall, I mean, I think it's just we've seen things before. I mean, this is where I would say experience comes in, and there are bigger things to worry about than, like, there's so many other things to worry about. So you have to be just emotionally aware in the moment that, like, these things can happen sometimes. It's okay to call an audible. Just like, you don't need to get down on yourself. And I think that's the big thing. And you have to have good leadership and good poise and cognizance, be cognizant in order to just, like, know that this is how things are going to go. And that's why with BTS going down, to go back to the BTS thing, that's why I'm not worried, because, these kinds of things happens. It's ebbs and flows.
Now you're just making me think about what a Star GG just went down. Jeez. Or I know people love complaining about Star GG. You know what's wrong with Star GG, Nathan, because you had to seed a lot of these events, not every single event, but I know we've talked at length before about how turbulent the Star GG code is for reseeding these big events with all these entrant numbers and occasionally crashing just before you're able to save everything. And then it's sparingly just reorganizing the seeds all together. And you go, wow, I'm starting over from scratch then. Okay, that's fine. I'm just going to tear my heart out now and hope that it stops beating. So, yes, having different events, and especially kind of because Genesis 8, was it not in the same venue in San Jose the year before in 2022?
It was in the convention center. It's just so how it was at Genesis 8 is that we had Hall 1, Hall 2, Hall 3. At Genesis 9, I think we only had Hall 2 and Hall 1. And then we had that executive room, which that's where the mainstream / the top 8 room was. And then some of the small executive rooms, which was like the media and VIP room. So it was still the same venue. It's just the difference is that we had different areas of the convention center.
Wait a minute. They had a media room at Genesis 9 or just at Genesis 8?
Genesis 9. Genesis 9, we had a media room.
I had a press pass. Was I allowed in there? I didn't know there was a media room. Dang it.
It was mainly for the staff. It was mainly for like staff. It was mainly for staff and like.
That's unfortunate. They call it a staff room, Nathan. I like being in rooms I'm allowed to be in. Dang it. That's unfortunate. That's just really unfortunate. That's fine. I don't need to be in every single room that I'm not supposed to be in, allegedly. It was cool at the other majors that I went to. You know, people took me in a few different places. Actually, you know what? All right. I almost completely forgot that when I first got there Thursday night, I was able to actually come back to see everything being set up because nothing is official. Get that out of my mind. Sorry. Dang it. I'm thinking of the wrong people. Sorry. No, we had Flashburn, excuse me. Flashburn took me back to see everything being set up and just kind of explained to me basically what happens on day 0 for a big event like Genesis, especially for the broadcasting side. So that was fun. I did get to do that at Genesis 9. So I thought, you know what? That's probably going to be good enough for me. I didn't get anything about there being a media room, so I assume there isn't one. So finding out now is disconcerting, but I did get a look at day 0 setup. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. It was mainly for like the photographers. Mainly, that's mainly what we used.
So staff then, yeah, that's fine. There's a staff room. I
didn't mean like that.
It's heartbreaking. People who have press pass or media pass can go here. No, actually, it's just for staff then. Okay. Say, Nathan, have you been trying to do stuff other than, of course you have, let me rephrase. Have you been trying to do anything that's along the lines of being a more active individual or doing some kind of physical sport? Do we not have a connection over Ultimate Frisbee, or am I making that up?
I mean, I used to do track and cross country when I was in high school. So, I mean, that was like the main thing I did. That was the main thing I did, and then I started lifting weights again, and then I may try taking up hiking again. I used to hike on a regular basis. I mean, like I've just kind of been going about. So like, I mean, I don't know about I mean, I need to have like a group of people if I were able to do it. But, you know, if like hockey was ever a thing in my area, I would totally do it.
You got to go to a Sharks game this year, and cruelly, it was the night before Armada went to a Sharks game.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunate. You could have just been like side by side with Armada going, go Sharks, and they actually made a big comeback in that game as well. Ugh. But how was your Sharks game?
I mean, it was a good experience. I mean, I hadn't been to a game since 2019, so it's been a while since I've been to a game. And I would say the biggest thing that I took just from being at a Sharks game is just like how the presentation is and how they run, you know, just a given game or operation each night. Like, what do they do to keep the fans engaged during downtime? You know, like little details like that really kind of spark some ideas for just like event organizing as a whole. Like, you know, how do you like, do we do giveaways? Do we do just like this funny side game or trivia game to, make the melee brains, melee stat brains working or whatever. It made me come up with a lot of TO ideas that I would like to apply at some majors. Some of them actually did come to fruition at Genesis 9, like the big the Intel box giveaway thing, or like the person that was the sandbag at the in the crowd at Genesis 9 in the crowd. This was all actually entirely my idea of Stewed being the MC for the whole entire like Intel thing that we were doing. And I don't know if we gave like a shirt or a wristband or whatever, but basically like I came up with that idea and we actually went forward with it. And I was really happy about that because it was a massive success. And I think stuff like that is important because you have people that are there for different reasons. Some people are there to compete. Some people are there just for the spectacle as a whole, or may not even know about Smash that much. You want to get them engaged in certain areas that makes it. I don't know if intimate's the right word for it. You want to make it engaging, because you're
Yes.
waiting for the next match, and the matches are generally the main attraction. That's the main attraction that people want when they come to watching. But when you do that, but like you need to have something on the side. It's like having a video game. I would use old games as examples. It's like having a video game. You have the main core of the game that's really good or whatever, but you have a bunch of side modes. Like I would say, I I can't believe I'm using Madden as an example because Madden is dog shit now. But basically, the old Madden, they would have like Pro Bowl mode. They would have create your play mode. They would have training camp mode. They would have scrimmage mode. They'd have all these things. And like it's just more things to add, but it doesn't like overflow like the big picture. And I think that's a big thing when it comes to these sort of aspects of running an event, is that you have a lot of content ideas or whatever, but the main thing is that if you keep it to where the continuity is intact, then it works well.
What I was really happy to see, I don't know why I never thought of this as being a good idea before. It's not like I have put a lot of thought into this or anything, but I always thought, what if we just kind of treated the Melee intro videos like our national anthem before a big event starts? And I swear that was actually the perfect thing for Genesis 9 when they did that before the top 8 started for Melee singles. And then at some point during one of the breaks, which I wonder if we'll have as many breaks moving forward, because we don't have as many. So sad. The PTS Twitch channel. I hope somebody takes over that. Anyway, the one of the breaks had, I believe it was Flashburn. I could be wrong because Flashburn does broadcasting. So I think it would be Flashburn typing all the things on the screen for everybody in the crowd to see. I love that so much. Just typing out different things. My personal favorite was while the camera was surveying the crowd, the camera caught one of our keyboard GameCube controller just with a keyboard in the middle, and then whoever it was typed in, "I'm actually using that keyboard right now," and the crowd cheers and the text goes away, and then all of a sudden it's just like mashing keyboards. I don't know why. I thought that was well done. It was very well done. I loved the engagement throughout top 8, and I think everyone being on the edge of their seat to see, is this finally the run for Jmook? I think that also kept everybody very focused, very engaged. I was sitting next to some of okay, I don't want to mix up the different people here, but I believe it was either Smasher Magazine friends or Mike Hayes friends. One of those two. And there was somebody there who hadn't really watched Melee before, but they were into it because the friends were saying to this person, Jmook has never won an event before, and look, so close to winning one now. And so that was I think that just keeps everybody engaged when something historical is happening. So it's easy for something like Genesis. It might be harder for other tournaments, but when you're seeing something like that, you go, I'm just completely locked in here. Oh, also funny screen, go haha.
Exactly. To touch up on Jmook, it was really a joy to be around him the entire weekend. I actually spent a very extensive amount of time with him throughout, both just in the VIP, just like in the VIP room, seeing him warm up and prep. I even got some friendlies with him as well, and he's just it was very down to earth. And when it came to top 8, I could tell he had a very like a laser focus, like a Stone Cold Killer face, and it was really nice to see. Like I was glad that I did an interview with him on Thursday because I really got to get an idea of how he goes about with a major. Just kind of what's his thought process. And like when we did our interview, like I think you probably saw it was like, what was the grimiest thing you've ever done or whatever. Like we had some questions like that we asked them. And when I did the JMOOC interview, literally after the interview, we talked for just like a few, like just even like a couple minutes after, because we both started playing around the same time, like 2014, 15. So like in our sort of generational sense, we kind of were on the same wavelength in terms of just, what we were what we were talking about and what we understood. And even just in how we play, even there's kind of a general idea when you could tell someone was playing. A lot of the old school Melee players have told me this, that like you could tell when someone was playing before 2013 and you could tell when someone was playing after 2013. You could tell when somebody is a doc kid, and you could probably tell when somebody's a Slippy kid. I swear, like, history repeats itself, and I saw it there, but like back to the JMOOC thing, it was a treat to see. And just like throughout the entire weekend, just seeing him go through things when we went to get him to the media room to get his headshot for top 8. Like he was just I asked him like, how you doing? How you holding up? And he's like, feel good. And like it was in the type of like tone of, I'm like, okay, he's locked in. He's locked in, he's focused. They're all business when you have to go and start competing. And it was a treat to see, and that laser focus eventually led to him winning, and really happy he won because he earned every bit of that. And I couldn't be more proud of him. I'm sure many others agree.
And I feel like so spoiled because all these people attended so many majors just to see Hungrybox win them. I would actually like to see a Hungrybox win because seeing the pop-offs that I've seen just for advancing through the bracket are crazy. But I've been able to see Amsa win his first super major and JMOOC win his first super major. Really cool tournaments, Big House 10 and Genesis 9 that I'm referring to. Really, really historical, one that we'll look back on forever. And at least for the Big House 10, I was too nervous to sit front row, but for Genesis 9, it wasn't necessarily up to me. One of my roomies, Jer Spurt, we both volunteered enough to get VIP sitting. We worked. No, I'm kidding. You worked for your VIP too, Nathan. Anyway, the point is that we got to sit up front. And so in the VODs, you can see me and Jer Spurt sitting. Oh, and Firepuff 12, we were all up front together, all sitting next to each other in the front row, just witnessing history and going, oh, yeah, I don't need to frequently point out to people that's me behind so-and-so a person during grand finals VODs or winners finals, but it's just cool that that's there. And maybe I'll show my children, but I really promise you, I'm not going to go out of my way. Everyone stop the local. Y'all want to see this video? Look, there I am. That's me right there. No, not that one. No, that one. The wearing the red. No, the other one. Oh no, I'm owned. Yeah.
That reminds me of the SpongeBob meme of, look, Gary, there I am.
Yes.
That's exactly you right now.
That is exactly me. It's cool. It's cool to share a little teeny bit of history because I was interviewing Oates a couple months ago, and Marco just casually says it was so cool watching Amsa beat Mewtwo King at such and such, and I go, wait, what? And he goes, go back and watch the VOD. And I'm like, wait a minute, are you sitting next to Mewtwo King, Marco? He's like, yeah, that's me. I'm like, what?
That was actually me during Zane Wizzy at Genesis 5, actually.
Wow.
So you probably know the interaction I'm talking about, the crazy pit fight between them.
So fun.
I was a couple feet away. I basically was actually around Wizzy almost generally through almost all of his losers run. And it was very fun. I've told a couple people this, but it was absurd. And I remember I talked to, because I think it was Chroma and Visha commentated it. Visha and I looked at each other afterwards because I think it was the last set of their block. So their block was done after that set, and I saw Vish, and he was just in disbelief. He's like, "What the hell?" He was like, "What the hell did I just witness?" It was something absurd. Like generally everyone had like the same vibe. We were just like, "Holy crap!" Like it was insane. Like that is definitely one thing I'll always remember. And I remember I actually sat next to Essie. Actually, Essie and I we were together when sitting together when that happened. And also another part of that story that people don't know about is that Aiden Calvin, he was actually literally yelling out. It's like he was like going for side bets. He was like, "Yo, I got 50 on Wizzy, I think it was. Yeah, I got 50 on Wizzy," and basically trying to take side bets with anyone in the crowd. And then Essie and I were just we were laughing the whole time. Just we were just like, this is so spaghetti, but like we were just enjoying the whole thing, and we were just vibing. But that was one of the most fun things. But like memories like that is just they're truly genuine. That's like the main thing, and just like to be a part of the history, like just saying I was there is quite a treat. I at least for me, I don't think about it too much. Maybe because I've been around so long, I don't think about it that much. But like as time goes on, you really start to appreciate those moments more. Like I truly appreciate now that I was at Genesis 3, and I appreciate that I was there to see the Mega Losers run in person. I appreciate Genesis 5 and seeing Plup winning, and then like the peak of the HBox Leffen feud, which the venue was palpable when that was happening. Like it was a palpable feud at that time.
Oh yeah, that was definitely boiling point.
But I mean, just those memories, they stack up over time, and you look back at it, it's like you truly have a wonderful time, with this community. And I'm sure like years down the line, you're gonna really be like, yeah, I was there to see J-Mook win his first major, and people are gonna be like, what the hell? So like that's just the nature. It's the nature of Melee. That'll be a cool treat to tell in a few years.
Yeah, eventually there will be people who say they wish they were there, or they wish they came in at the same time or before Jmook won, because Jmook might just win a bunch of events. I mean, we'll see what happens at Collision. There are some really good players that are going to Collision, and based on last night, looks like Cody's ready to win a big event, and Hungrybox is not. Ew. So I'm interested in seeing how Collision turns out, and then moving forward. Now, Nathan, you, like a lot of people, would obviously prefer to be able to make at least part of a living around Smash, and it's not really possible to do. It's very difficult to do consistently. I would love, for example, for a group of TOs to just kind of be like the ones who run, I don't want to say all of our events, I'd say about half of the big events, and they can make it work slightly better. But that also involves flying and going to cities for an entire week at a time, because you don't live in Detroit to run Big House, you don't live in SoCal to run Wave Dash, or you don't live in New York City to run Function 3 or whatever big event's going to be near New York next. And I'm not talking about a pre-major local like they have going on at Nightclub tonight, even though that should be a pretty fun bracket. And I'll definitely be checking out Top 8 after we're done talking. But when you think about your specific role, what you've been doing around Melee, through Melee, enjoying Melee, I know that you need time to kind of decompress after being around for the big ones like Genesis, and that running locals or even regionals has become harder for you to feel like you can actually put yourself into that process and do. So with BTS going away, it's just one of those support systems, one of those logistical systems that allows for a little bit more flexibility on what is a very limited flexible position as being a TO. How do you feel about continuing to participate in Smash other than just as a spectator or an event attendee? How do you feel about continuing to try to do stuff behind the scenes and help out?
I would say it only the BTS going down thing only affects a handful of people. Actually, it only affects a handful, and it's generally the people that were already either contracted by BTS or was in that sort of inner circle already running majors to begin with. So with me, it actually does not affect me much, believe it or not. It doesn't affect me much. I would say the only thing that affects me is that it's a couple less events to go to and maybe potential commentary or staff opportunities. I mean, that's when you get into the what ifs, but like that's just being realistic of like, that's what could have been on the table. I mean, it's unfortunate it didn't work out, but I would say like if you were to do that, you would definitely ruffle some feathers, I think, because I think there's a lot of hardworking organizers today all over the world. And the field, I would say, is more competitive now because I feel like people forget this is ultimately, even though there's not a lot of money involved, it's still ultimately a business at the end of the day. It can be cutthroat and dirty at times, but I think it's important to know that it's a business. And if you were to have this select group of people running X events, great. It's probably going to be a quality event, but you're definitely going to get some people that are going to be like, well, I felt you're going to get some people that are going to, you know, feel kind of cut by that decision. I don't think that route would be a good route. I think trying to build like people trying to build up their things individually would be better because when you have VGBC going down, Panda Cup going down, and now this, the slate is wide open, and I feel like if you're to congregate now to like maybe one separate org or something like that, I feel like it's not a wise step. I think, we should give it some time, to let it breathe, definitely grieve a little bit, especially those involved because, it sucks for them. But, we should just like embrace a process right now. I feel like if you were to go in at this moment and try to do things right now or have like a certain group of people run events, yeah, you may get some quality events and be great, but you put them in a position to where you rely on them for everything. And I don't think it's a wise decision to do that. I mean, we kind of, in a sense, have done that with Ludwig a bit with some of the stuff because of the amount of wealth he has.
Mm.
A coin box is a big deal. I don't think it's a wise decision to rely on those people. And the community has had a tendency to do this a lot. And my hot take is that the community should not rely on that. And we have done this to people in the past, and that's why people burn out or whatever. I think what should happen is that you should try to get a variety of people doing things, and this is why I would say go back to local stuff, because when you go back to local stuff, that's all like those are the people. That's your future. That's your future of the scene. I'm gonna bring up Brandon leaving NorCal here. Brandon leaving NorCal is a huge deal for NorCal Melee. Brendan's been, to say, one of the most iconic people the community has ever had, and to have him leave NorCal, it's a big deal. But the community, I would say NorCal, we have shown that we can do it without him because we have built from within. We have built and had people like Cowpaw Kid, Iconics, Floods, Free Hops, Italo, Nate Gallagher, myself, Javi, and probably many Trey the Trashman, probably many others I'm missing. Vile, Otto. I mean, these guys, you may not know much of these guys, but these guys are the guys really holding it down for NorCal Melee at the moment. Because generally Brennan only does the big stuff now, which is huge for us, but it's showing that we have more there. And I think you should turn to those things because we're gonna get to an age where your big names aren't going to be around as much anymore. Like, I'm being realistic here when I say this, is that Blur hasn't run a really big event in a while. And I'm not saying it's like a knock to Blur or anything, but I'm just saying it how it is. Is that like, you're going to need to have other people take on the mantle on running these big events or managing certain things. And I think if you're to rely on a handful of people and they go out or they take a step back, then what the fuck of a scene is left? You have to make sure that in the concept of you have to roll 4 lines. That's a hockey concept. You have to roll your first line, which is generally your star players, your second line, which is kind of your solid players, third line, still solid players. Fourth line could be like your grind line, your players that are enforcers or whatever. But the thing is, like, you have to make sure that the community can collectively work, still operate. And that's why I don't think having people, like a select set of people to staff every major is the way to go. Because one, it also depends on the budget of these majors, because every budget is different and every scale of the major is different as well. I mean, Major Upset, this is their first time really doing this big sort of thing. Like, they've done the back end blood stuff before, but like Major Upset's a really big different level. And then you have like Wave Dash 2023. This is only the second time they have done something of this scale. And they're definitely going through their growing pains as well, having AC. But like that sort of thing is important, is that you have to understand that every major's at a different state right now, and they're doing different things. And I think being able to trust the core of people you have is the way to go, because I guarantee the people at Wave Dash, they're going to look at everything that happened at Wave Dash 2022, and they're going to try to elevate it for 2023. And the beauty of it is, it's all from within. And that's why, like, despite everything that went wrong with Wave Dash 2022 last year, like, I'm glad that they are going forward with it with another major, because that will be, they're trying to do their own thing,
and add AC to the venue.
But like, yeah, exactly. But like that sort of thing is the big deal. And I don't know, like, I think local scenes should be valued more in this state of time, especially since the majors / esports bubble just burst.
There are a lot of different bubbles bursting around esports, and there is a general collective feeling of uh-oh. But I think about how there's going to be also an influx of stuff. For example, the big thing for 2023 across FGC is Street Fighter 6 coming out. And I think Combo Breaker happening in the either late spring or early summer. I want to say late spring. No, it's actually happening in May, right after Battle BC5, isn't it?
Yeah, late May.
So is Street Fighter 6 going to be out by then? We all know it's going to be out by August, but is it going to be out by the end of May? Combo Breaker probably really wants it to be out. The streets want it to be out by May.
Definitely in the streets.
Oh my gosh, that's a good point. Oh my gosh. Well, if it's not out for Combo Breaker, Melee's out Combo Breaker is what I'm getting at. We just need little things like that. And then Rivals of Aether 2 is coming out in 2024, and I'm really hopeful that game turns into something bigger than Rivals of Aether as it stands now. I think it's not as if to say that ROA is bad, or that it's not enjoyable to play, or that the Guild House, not Guild House, that's the venue nearby the big convention center in San Jose. Something about housing. There's a community of people, Rivals of Aether workshop characters, workhouse. Anyway, the point is, people be making custom characters. There's all kinds of different little things you can do in Rivals of Aether now. I'm just hoping that Rivals of Aether 2 goes super hard in the paint, just because that'll be a bunch of new eyes. I think in 2022 we saw that with Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. You get to see people. You get to see, at the very least, a very fun crew battle, Melee versus Ultimate, that had 20,000 viewers, people who may not have necessarily paid attention to a Smash related thing before, and like, all right, close enough. I want to check out Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl because the idea of SpongeBob SquarePants fighting Patrick Star in a fighting game sounds cool, or in a platform fighter. Hopefully that will also help all these events that do crossover, because we do get things like Combo Breaker. I believe CEO is still planning on having one of the Smash games in their bracket. Not entirely sure, but we will hopefully see not just Smash centric events going well, but also the crossover ones going well. And you talk about locals. Yes, we in a very weird way have like 3 different locals happening in 717 after a long time of having 0 locals. We have a Friday night weekly, we have a We have one monthly and one bi-weekly. So you can go to 3 events within a month, whereas in the months prior, you could go to exactly 0 a month. It's crazy. Oh, and then there's someone here, shouts out to Drew, hosting fests once a month-ish. So there's another monthly for you because they are actually well run. Drew is the homie. So I am loving the fact that even if the international level stage, the big 2,000 plus entrant tournaments are going to be lacking, most likely, I don't think anyone is going to be able to break 1,000 entrants for Melee this year because it was hard enough to even get close last year, it felt like. And Genesis 9 fell short of 1,000, didn't it?
No, we were over 1,000, I think.
Then what was the other big event somewhat recently that it might have been Big House 10 because Big House 10
Big House was at like 900 something.
Yeah, it was short of 1,000. Okay, so it's really difficult, right? Really difficult to get 1,000 entrants for one event. I'm not talking about for the entire weekend. You get a couple thousand or more for Genesis 9 and such. But when it comes to the locals, if you have locals nearby you, I see people on Reddit. A lot of people on Reddit recently have been saying, okay, so what locals are there in this area or in that area? There was even someone who did it for, is there any locals nearby Harrisburg? Which I said, that's the county next over. There is stuff happening in near Harrisburg, and here's the Discord server. Like, it's just, you will hopefully be able to grow those and say, hey, friend, you like playing Melee. You live in the same area as I do. You have friends, right? You should bring your friends, and I should too. I haven't brought any of my friends over to a Smash local, although I want to. I promise, I want to. Just haven't.
That should be your next line of duty. Get them to go.
I already feel like I'm a soldier by going to the events in the first place. But you're right. You're right. And they'll say, "Oh, I'm not any good at Smash," but maybe they'll like it because it's super cool. People are super cool as well. I just need to remember that. Yes. Just because they don't play a lot doesn't mean they won't actually have a good time. They can have a good time. Okay. Before we get wrapped up here, I wanted you to get into some of these other notes that you have. I don't want to leave out topics of conversation that you wanted to come with, and I need to go pee. So the floor is yours. I will be right back. Pick a topic and dive into it. You good with that?
Yeah, sounds good. All right. I guess really in this time, it would be where do we go from here? So I would say with the community, I already touched up a bit on it, is that where the community should go is to go back to its roots. Because I think you could say, I like to envision this, I've thought about this recently, is that it's like a 10-year rise or like a 10-year run. We hit it with Evo 2013, and you see this boom. And with that boom, then you eventually get to, you would say maybe the peak was Evo 2016 or some shit like that, where you had the most entrants ever in a Melee tournament. But you had like this general wave that the community rode off of, where you had a Genesis, a Summit, a Big House, a main stage, whatever. You had those types of events. And with those types of, with those types of things going on, and now with those ending, you have to look and say, okay, that was the end of, you could say, we called this back in the day, we call it the Platinum Age. That was the end of the Platinum Age, and I think going forward, you now have Slippy Kids, and these people are now going to be embarking on their own journeys as well. Because our Doc Kids, we never really had to deal with anything sort of going down like this. The OGs like a Blur, a Tafikins, a Mango, like anyone that's been around as like 2004 and shit like that, I would say those are the people that are probably the wisest of anybody. Like, I texted Bobak a bit about this, and he was like, we're going to be just fine. These are the ebbs and flows, and sometimes you're going to roll with the punches. And to his credit, they were right. And another reason why I would say, I feel like this has been the hot subject, is that I had just been through this with NorCal Melee specifically in 2021, 2022. Because in the times I think there was one podcast. I don't remember which one. I don't know if it was the second time I was on or the third time I was on. Um, where I talked about how NorCal Melee is kind of whatever, but since then we've had a massive improvement. I texted Nick Gallagher, who's one of our production slash organizer people, and he said, "Yeah, we're in a bit of a local boom right now, and the landscape of our local scene is changing." 408 Melee, South Bay Melee is still like that is like the area for like NorCal stuff. Guildhouses are the premier local, but you have other supporting locals as well, like Blackthorn is a fantastic up and coming local that happens every Tuesday on twitch.tv/NorCal Melee on occasions.
Hmm.
Um, we have Rosa Rising in Santa Rosa. That's been going on for about a year. I think they've had over 20 iterations now of it. Gator Games, the SF State Monthly, finally back in action. That's a great thing to see. Just there's just a bunch of things. And if you were to ask me in 2021 or early to mid 2022, I would say fuck, we're in trouble. We don't have much, we don't have a lot of TOs, it's just but with time, through people stepping up and taking on new things or just, through the process, things got better. And I think majors are going to go through a bit of that. And that's why my worry is not much. And I think, you have to look at it as that, like, all these old stuff, like the summits and stuff like that, you can't trot on legacy forever because NorCal Melee did for a long time, I would say. For better or for worse, because I mean NorCal has a very rich history. That's not to discredit it, but when you have a new era, and especially something like COVID, where you had no locals for a while, and you're trying to figure out, what kind of scene do you have? Well, you're gonna figure out over the months, and you're gonna figure out what is valued in a scene. What does the scene actually value? Okay, so they value, I would say in 2021, my events, Bay Area Rumble, was extremely valued because there just wasn't a lot. The AFK monthlies, that was valued. Guildhouse was extremely valued. I'd say the value still holds up. You have to look at what's valued, and some things can vary over time because some things can age very well. I would say Guildhouse holds its value a lot. The production has gotten better, each time we run Animele on the stream now. Our overlays are constantly getting better. Javi's, our TO, is asking for feedback. Um, Everybody knows about Guildhouse at this point now, so that's also a plus. So like everyone knows it's like, oh, Guildhouse also is a weekly on Thursdays. When not a lot of people knew about it when Genesis 8. You have to just look at all those things and what's good for a region. And then you have to really, embrace that identity. I think about Ralph getting into Smash Summit 14, the last summit. I think that was the biggest thing NorCal Melee has had since PBU getting signed by CLG. And the reason I say that is because it was the first person outside of the big three, first person outside of PPU, SFAT, and Shroomed that had done something of that, like, of this sort of significance. Like, yeah, we've had Umar and Azel, stuff like that, they win, like, way dash doubles or whatever, but, like, to this, like, degree, you're getting somebody from NorCal that has gone to locals and stuff into a summit. That's a massive deal. That puts everyone on notice because for a long time we trotted on, a lot of people knowing that, NorCal is known for PPU, SFAT, and Shrimmed. And yeah, I mean, we're not going to discredit their history, but if we look at the now, the people that are representing NorCal through and through and going to locals each week are Umarth, Umarth, Ralph, Dark Atma, Rom, Typhoon, Blarg, Space Pigeon, Free Hops, Mosquito, many, many more. But those are the people that truly represent the scene right now. And I think it's important also to still represent the old guard like Johnny and SPAT because they have definitely done their fair share of grinding. But this is the now. These are the people that are constantly going out. And it's important to embrace those people because that's who we have now. And I think not representing those people is a disservice, to like, pumping up the new, I wouldn't say the new blood because a lot of these people have been playing for a long time, but pumping in like the new faces, if you will, the new
Yes.
faces of the scene, because there's going to be eternal leadership. With Brandon gone, I think that's something you have to acknowledge. It's like, okay, what happens to the vault? What happens to does Brandon throw big NorCal events on occasions down the line? You have to really think of all those factors, and it's something that just has to get navigated over time. There's no clear answer, and there's not one person. I may not have all the answers. I may have a prominent voice in it, and I may have maybe some influence or some steering power in it, but still, I am not ultimately the only person. There's a ton of moving parts and a ton of different aspects, and I just think it's important to build up the new people or that are really on the come up, to a point to where maybe, if maybe I'm not around as much, they can take on the mantle and do those things, because ultimately people aren't going to be around forever in the community. And I think it's important that if you're going to pass it on to the next generation, you have to make sure it's in good hands in order to do that. And I think that's something that just we're gonna have to experience, and we're gonna see how it plays out. And it's an exciting time. It's a ton of uncertainty, but there's a part of me in a weird way that is excited about it, because there's gonna be a ton of change happening, some for the better, some for the worse. But we're here for an adventure, and I think that's what Melee is all about, and that's what we all came for the scene for.
The team that you fell in love with, would be it a football team? For me, it would be the Philadelphia Eagles, or if it would be you, the San Jose Sharks. The 49ers? Did you watch the 49ers?
The Sharks are terrible. But yes, I watched the Niners and the Sharks.
Okay, well, you in your personal lifetime, the 49ers were already kind of past their boom, because that was 80s and 90s. A little teeny bit early 2000s, but not really. So I'm thinking about how the Philadelphia Eagles team that I fell in love with was coached by Andy Reid, no longer the head coach. Players like Donovan McNabb, Brian Westbrook, and Brent Selleck, Brian Dawkins. None of those people are on the team anymore. In fact, many of them have either gone on to play for other teams, retire, all that stuff, or coach for other teams. And the organization, save for maybe a couple of behind the scenes faces, has also changed. It's not even the same front office staff, and you are somehow in love with the team still. Why is that? Because it was somebody's job at some point to say, all right, we've lost our franchise quarterback of the past 10 or so years. How do we, as an organization, bring up a new quarterback? Why are you asking that when the old quarterback is already up and out, either because of trade or because of retiring or because of losing them to free agency? You need to plan for these things in advance. And one of the most puzzling things of all time as an Eagles fan, to me at the time, I was more puzzled by this move than anything in recent memory, was when we drafted Jalen Hurts, because we drafted Jalen Hurts less than a calendar year after signing Carson Wentz to like a 4-year, $100 million guaranteed contract. And we did it in the second round. And I'm going, why aren't we using the second round pick to, I don't know, get a decent wide receiver? Why are we drafting a quarterback who's going to be pressured to play in this city? Because Philadelphia is the kind of city for football that says, no, you need to play the quarterback that you draft high, even if it's a second rounder. You just need to do that. And I'm going, why are we putting all this unnecessary pressure on our current quarterback who's already had pressure enough? Why are we doing all this? None of this makes sense. And yet we've gone from the fall of grace where, this team is below 500. This team sucks. We're not going anywhere. We've turned it around within the normal timeline. We went back to the Super Bowl. We went back to the Super Bowl with a nearly completely different team. There were only 5 or 6 players that were on the same roster as the 2017 winning team, Nathan, and that was only 5 years ago. So there was only about 5 or 6 players left. So that's the kind of turnover that you come to expect in football or in other sports. When you look at Melee, everybody from the top down, and we talked about this earlier about saying your lines have to be good in hockey. They can't just rely on the first line and then what? As soon as they go out of the game, you're going to give up a bunch of not a bunch of points. I guess
goals.
I guess you could give up 3 goals in 30 seconds if you really wanted to, but that would be very impressive if you figured it out, huh?
That has happened before, or at least just, that sort of thing. That can happen.
It can happen? Is this common? That doesn't feel right.
It doesn't happen. It's not common, but
okay, how about this? 2 goals in 60 seconds. That feels like that would happen if you had the wrong line out for too long.
That has happened.
Yes.
That has happened before.
Okay, so with when you think about somebody like Brandon, who has indicated pretty strongly, talked about this at Redemption Rumble after the stream was over, talking about NorCal Classic 2, I think it is. I've heard that name and I go, whoa, everybody in Twitch chat is freaking out for some reason. And then said, yeah, we're going to bring back a few retired players. And I was like, oh, okay. So sure, maybe there will be a big NorCal event at some point that Brandon comes back for. But when is that going to happen? And why hasn't that been formally announced, right? So
that's entirely up to Brandon.
Exactly. So did Brandon, quote unquote, train somebody up to do the kind of events that he used to do in NorCal? Maybe it's not 100% necessary if he intends on flying back to run those events when the time comes.
I mean, and that's an answer that will be just told with time.
Right. But for somebody like Juggle Guy, without Juggle Guy, Big House does not happen. Does Juggle Guy say, I want Big House to happen, but I don't want to run it anymore? He knows what he has to do. He would have to take someone who has been at the helm with him or has previous experience in running events and say, I would like for you to start to take this over. You're going to help me run Big House 11, or gosh, I hope there's a Big House 11. You're going to help me run the next big event, and we're going to see how it goes. And if you want to, you can take this over for the one after, or whatever the case may be. Those are all totally hypotheticals. Okay, sorry. NorCal Classic was talked about on stream. Brandon wants to do it. Talked about bringing players out of retirement to do that. So hopefully it will happen. That's not a hypothetical. The Juggle Guy thing is purely hypothetical though. So that's just me drawing an example. And then it finally goes all the way down to the low level people. One of the people who I mentioned earlier, Drew, who's running super cool house fests once a month or so, is a Slippy kid. And look, Drew goes to these locals that J Bob runs, or Whiplash is doing over at Millersville University, the Friday Weekly. And just kind of picking things up. Not always like, I must be the apprentice to the master, but just asking questions and going, okay, what do I need to have a proper setup, and getting a proper setup. And then you go, what if I could do like a little mini stream? No, I don't want to do that. Okay, well, what if I just have people over to my house? Oh, can I do that? And for me, the answer is no, because I have children, but Drew could do it because Drew has no kids right now. So this is super cool. And we all say thank you, Drew, because there's one person who helps make our region feel more alive, and very alive, because part of the big draw is there's a lot of liquid courage going around at that 21 plus event. I guess for the people who partake, it's very super dummy hype. For me, I'm just big time chilling. I'll be somebody's designated driver. Actually, I can almost entirely guarantee you that I will definitely be someone's designated driver for that evening, because they live close to my house. But anyway, that's how we keep things going in the local sense, is just saying, you know what if I do this? It's not Drew saying, oh no, BTS is shutting down. What are they, the people who are normally in charge, are going to do? This was not started, by the way. Drew didn't start running events because of BTS shutting down, just using that as an example. But you understand what I'm saying. It's happening because people go, all I hear about TOing Melee and Smash events is that it's horrible. I want to do that. Big shout outs to the people with the bravery to step forward and start running events at their house, and then turns into a little mini auditorium, and then a bigger one, and then a bigger one after that. Super cool.
I That's definitely one of the funniest things I heard. Like, at least to me, I think it's a bad precedent that we think it that. I think you have to look at the big picture is that we're providing an opportunity and a space for us to play the game we love, but that's oh my god, that's really good. It's like, oh, this is all horrible, but I want to do it anyway. It's like, all right, fuck it,
Let it
fuck it, we're
run.
gonna do it. I mean, I think just to go back, I had this in my notes, and it goes back to the sports team. I actually wrote this down. So the community is like a sports team. We're going through a rebuild, and I remember when NorCal Melee was in pretty bad shape. It took a while for us to get going. Now we're in really good shape, I'd say. So I mean, pretty much like you said, the San Jose Sharks. I would use the Sharks as an example here. Our Stanley Cup window just closed. You know, it's closed. We are bottom three in the league. We are, we just retired Patrick Marleau's jersey, who was just the first Sharks player to ever have their jersey retired. You know, we're entering the end of the Stanley Cup window era, which was from like 2003 to about 2019. You know, it was a good run. We only made the finals once but lost, but it was a good run at the end of the day. But you have to look at it now and what our new general manager Mike Greer is doing. He is trading some players, getting draft picks. You know, he's starting for the future. And fans are like, "Oh, what the hell is he doing? He's getting fleeced or whatever." But you have to look in the big picture. He's settling up for the future, and that's why you have to think about is that you can't be worried about this sort of deal because I think what people have to realize, and I've come to accept this more and realize it, stuff takes time. It takes time. It certainly sucks. Time can sometimes be one of the most difficult things to overcome. And to borrow a quote from the YouTuber I like, he's a sports YouTuber. He goes by a funny name named Urinating Tree. But Tree said that, time is the most valuable asset. And you choose to spend it here. And whatever you do in that time is, I think, what should be going forward. What do you use with that asset? Is it to build for the future of the hockey team? Or in the case for what my situation was for 2021, 2022, it was how can I lay a foundation to where all these new guys can really start to help out in NorCal Melee? Because at the time, we did not have a whole lot. You have to really look at those things. And there were some very difficult times. I am not gonna hesitate from them. There were some times where I thought about pulling the plug, but through persistence, through a process, some encouragement from people really close to me, Umar, Bobak, I would say those are the main two I really give them my utmost respect and appreciation for. It kept me going in times where I felt like I was done, and continue to push forward because it's an up and down process. I write this down, and ever since I started journaling back at the start of 2023, I started writing this squiggly line, and this squiggly line on each of them, I put a dot, and that dot is I put a dot either on the low side or the high side, and I write you are here because that's the general state of mind you are right now. So I was just going to say I was going through a down. I am there, but that squiggly line, it's going to go up again, and I'm gonna have another time where I write the squiggly line again, and it's like you are here. You're not enough. You feel fucking awesome. You feel great. And that's just gonna be the process. And I think those ebbs and flows are gonna show over time with the community, and it's important to see where we go from there. But I'm, you know, I'm thrilled at least I'm just kind of embracing the journey. Every up and every down because ultimately, whenever a great moment arises or whenever just things start to come together, it's going to be a very incredibly rewarding feeling. And you're going to really look back and be like, man, I'm really glad I went through that. All the struggles and all the work was worth it. I think of the Golden State Warriors 2022 championship team. That team stands out to me more than the other championships because that team actually went through some struggles. They lost the finals, and then they lost Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson to injury. Kevin Durant free agency. They were worst team in the league in 2020. COVID hit. Clay tears his Achilles, all that. Like, you look at all those things, and then when they go and win the championship, that's a very satisfying feeling because unlike the others where they thought, quote unquote super team or whatever, or cakewalk, luck or whatever, they earned it. I look at that sort of thing, and that's why I've learned to appreciate the struggles a lot more. And I think it's important that you should learn to appreciate the struggles as well because you don't know when the good times are gone. And it's very important to appreciate them, especially right now.
You could look at Genesis 9 being the culmination of surviving through the process of Genesis 8 being delayed and running, and in some ways feeling like this is kind of like a last gasp sort of situation. What's going to happen to next year? Are they going to be able to operate at the same capacity? It wasn't necessarily a big overarching question, but I thought that kind of process of having to delay an event and to go through all of those channels who are all saying back to you, well, what? Why are you doing this? And going through that process, I imagine, just takes years out of your life in a metaphorical sense, not necessarily literally. And I thought, how much more stuff will Sheridan and Bobak and the rest of the Genesis team put up with? And it culminates with Genesis 9 being like it. It's certainly going to be a top 3 tournament for this year. It doesn't matter if it was the first big tournament for 2023. We will look back on this year after it's over and we're in 2024. We'll look back and say, Jmook winning Genesis 9, yeah, that's a top 3 tournament of the year. And it's also a shame. It's put so much pressure on everybody else to have like such a sick event, but like, no one can claim to have Jmook winning the first super major ever. And especially because, again, it was Genesis 8. Jmook breaks out and then spends a year trying to get first and doesn't get there. This is so painful because Hungrybox just seems determined to only win when he plays against Jmook. But then Genesis 9, the very same tournament that he made his name in an international sense. You and I knew who Jmook were before Genesis 8, but you get what I'm saying. Wins that. That was the result of so much work. I mean, not just you. I'm talking about everybody on the team. And of course, we always keep saying it, but we'll keep doing it. Sheridan, Bobak, doing so much just to make that even possible. So that was not because everything was super easy and the roses were all blooming nicely that Genesis 9 happened. That was from the very beginning, from the very first Genesis, it built up to that moment. So it's the weight of history. Like, when the dependable people go away, who else are we going to find? But in the same way that Melee finds a way to persevere, the people who are behind the scenes, the ones who come through that are diamonds in the rough, that can do the amount of work that 5 other people, that 20 other people can do, but they just do it all by themselves, make things happen no matter what. You lose people like Ryobeat because of how much burnout there is, but then others come along because they nominate themselves and they go, I can grow myself as a person and as a contributing member of society, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't always lead to a career within Smash or even esports. And that's the sad thing about Beyond the Summit shutting down, because I looked at the list of names and I thought these are all people that had their livelihood taken away. And yes, there's a little bit of a benefits package and severance package, but this is really unfortunate that they all now have to look possibly out of esports, and we'll lose really cool people that were responsible for bringing us great events. But given time, we may not see something like Summit for years, but no one's going to forget. And I bet you that before maybe 2026, how about that? There will be something that is not like Summit, but functionally Summit, because someone will say, I can run an event like that, and they'll get up to there.
Yep. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that you have to look at the big picture in these times. It's kind of corny to say, a cliche to say, like, look at the positives, but I think you really do, because, and I think also just appreciate what they did. They deserve all the thank yous. And I think also appreciate the moment, appreciate that people like Bobek and Sheeran have done this sort of thing for almost 15 years. I think that's a big thing to account, and I truly appreciate them more now seeing one on the bracket end side, and then also seeing more on the media side of how they operate things. And it's truly a treat to say. And I've gotten to see a lot of cool things behind the scenes that they do, and then also just like the fun that they have. Just that you could tell they genuinely enjoy what they do, and I think just more importantly to just just appreciate it. I think that's the big thing. And those people, regardless of what the future may hold with them, you wish them one only the best, but then also just in the future, wherever the community goes, that we embrace it full on, and we enjoy the adventure. And at least from my personal stake, I would say just with from Genesis 8 to Genesis 9, I would, at least for me, my personal journey, it wasn't a coming together moment. I would say stuff down the line, 2024 is going to be more where things come together. I'm treating 23 as a rebuild year, but everyone's process is different. In the case for Jmook, it was definitely a coming together type of moment, and everyone's process is different. And I think it's a good, it's a good thing to really embrace the process, embrace the times where you feel low, and embrace the times where you feel great, and then just just try the best you can, even if you have limited resources. And I think that's, to borrow a quote from an anime called Licorice Recoil, there are things you gain in losing something. And whatever happened, since BTS going down, we're certainly going to gain something from it.
Nathan, we are out of time. I have to get finished up here because my wife needs to go to bed. So
No worries.
any final shout outs and where the people can find you? Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Please tell the people all the things you want to tell them before we get going.
I would say, first, you can follow me on Twitter at NathanSandwich. I tweet whatever right now. I don't know. You can join the NorCal Melee Discord. You can follow the NorCal Melee Twitter account at NorCal Melee. Thank you to anyone who has stuck around with me on the journey, especially just in the long ride that has been my 2022 into 2023. Truly appreciate you guys. And then we're gonna be just fine. It's just gonna be a bump in the road, and we're here for an adventure, and let's just keep at it. Push forward.
The Haikyuu tweets have begun, so people who like that show should follow you so that you can continue to tweet to them. These are my thoughts on the show I've never seen before. Nathan, thank you so much for the time. Stick around for after the outro. We gotta do the thumbnail. But to everybody else, stay classy or something. We'll see you on the next episode of Bottom of the Smash Mountain.